But even the mundane task of document collection became an adventure for us. Sandia National Laboratory stored fallout records on Manzano Mountain in the tunnels once used to store nuclear weapons, the nuclear weapons stockpile during the Cold War. We would drive to the appropriate storage tunnel, and our armed escort would phone the guard station to tell them we would be opening the door. One day we were waiting in the van to go in as the escort made his call. There was a loud shot. We looked up, and he proudly held up a rattlesnake that apparently also wanted to make a call. He also made a good suggestion that when we open the boxes, we clap our hands a few times above the folders. No, not rattlesnakes. It says, it's to let you know where the scorpions are. Another new research experience for me. By 1984, our growth in contracts and personnel, we were able to purchase an office, a small condo office near the Shady Grove metro stop, and those Reagan years were very good for History Associates. We entered two new areas of work full-time, archives and litigation for research for governments. The way we got into archives, I was speaking to the chairman of Texas Instruments and asking about the records of a recently retired long-time employee and board member. Well, they're in his office, aren't they? He said. I shrugged. I said I didn't know. We went right down to the office. The office was bare, not a paper anywhere. The chairman was stunned, but decisive. On that day, History Associates entered the archives business. In litigation, we got away a bit from the fallout through the state of New Mexico in researching records relating to water rights and the Mescalero Apache Reservation. Here again, Ruth Harris, a dogged and determined researcher, and through her, we discovered that litigation research could be both fascinating and a lucrative application of historical skills. By 1986, we were named to the Inc. magazine's list of 500 fastest growing companies in the country. Our contract sales were nearly $1.5 million, and 6 years later, they had already gone to nearly $3 million. By 1992, History Associates was probably the largest single employer of history graduates, including PhDs, MAs, and BAs in the country. Then, as the Bible predicts, the fat years were followed by the lean. After all those years of success, we lost 2 large federal contracts in '92 and '93, cutting our revenues by 50%. This time, entrepreneurial risk took on a new meaning. For the first time, we were forced to let people go. As a result, we reevaluated our whole business model. For more than 10 years, we've relied on government work to provide a strong base for the company. With that gone, what were our alternatives? We had just received a major oral history and book project from MCI, the pioneering long-distance telephone company that changed the way all of us use the telephone today. The light went on. We would refocus our contracting to the private sector. There were several other business avenues we tried around this time, many of which failed. One was to do cultural resource management. That didn't work. We wanted to establish offices outside of Washington. We thought that might be good. We did establish one on the West Coast where the office was run by Gabrielle Carey, who had been an archivist for Orange County, and she decided to change and come with History Associates. All her friends said, "You're crazy. How can you take a job with this company? It may not be there next year." As it turned out, the following year, it was Orange County that declared bankruptcy, and Gabrielle is still with us. Other attempts at offices failed. The only partial success was one in Louisville, headed by Arnita Jones, which we closed when she became left to become executive director of the Organization of American Historians. Yeah, another one was museum work we tried. We bid on a major project for a museum in Taiwan. Money was no object, they said. Don't believe it. We didn't get that either. And our savior at that point, the answer came in Mike Reese. The immediate past president of this society. Mike reinvented our litigation division, moving from fallout issues to environmental issues. It was a simple strategy to move to where the money was, and for a number of years that Mike's litigation division carried us financially. Since then, we have largely succeeded, I believe, in clearing the paths for new directions of applied history. We have demonstrated that historians and museum exhibits can go hand in hand. From our first adventure into exhibits, successful adventure into exhibits with the National Archives on World War II, to the International Spy Museum, to the museum at Woodstock, for those of you who remember 1969, and if you do, what were you smoking? To the Visitor Center at Normandy, to a museum of the mafia in Las Vegas, to most recently the Museum of American Jewish History in Philadelphia. Our job is not the design or fabrication, but the text and illustrations and sounds that illuminate the history. We have adapted to electronic records, not as much as I would like, but certainly ahead of much of the profession. In 1977, Jim Gardner, a society member, and History Associates organized a conference entitled Documenting the Digital Age, with sponsorship from the National Science Foundation, MCI, and Microsoft. I thought the conference was a terrific success, but the corporate, academic, and governmental interest was both tepid and timid. We failed to follow up with any vigor as well. It took more than a decade for the government to make initial investments in this daunting and complex task. We have assisted, as History Associates has assisted the National Archives in the development of the non-technical aspects of an electronic records archives, and that is, how could they best be designed to ingest, not a word of my choosing, but I can't find another, and preserve documents under current records management practices and researcher needs in the future. The history we do is also going digital in both audio and video formats. My first oral histories were done with reel-to-reel recorders. Just try to find one of those today. I switched to cassettes, but they too have become obsolete. Now, I rarely even see the people I interview, recording digitally directly from my phone to the computer, converting those that interview to MP3 files and sending it electronically to a transcriber. Much less expensive, but I bemoan the loss of direct contact with my interviewees. We also produce DVD histories, that is, with digital text, digital audio, and digital video for clients in place of traditional illustrated books. And during the past year, we have been developing applications for smartphones to deliver a historian's commentary on Civil War battlefield sites. All of these are far beyond anything I could have imagined in the business of history in 1979. What about history in the digital age? From using the president's email to write the MCI history, I believe the first time a historian used electronic records as a source, I learned that so much organized and uncontrolled documentation has been kept that it has become enormously time-consuming and an arduous task to identify what is important and what is not. TMI is no longer 3 Mile Island. Today it stands for too much information. Will we come to rely on artificial intelligence, perhaps something like Watson, to do the archival processing and historical sifting of the overwhelming numbers of raw records for us? If so, it will be a future with significant implication for both archival and history professions. So now, 30 years later, I believe History Associates has retained our initial objectives in providing a professional setting for a professional staff. We have redefined and broadened the idea of a history professional to include researchers and archivists at several career levels. I should emphasize that we offer careers, not simply jobs, in history and archives. But most importantly, History Associates has successfully transitioned to a new generation of management. The past 6 years, we have been implementing a carefully designed plan to transfer management responsibility and ownership to the next generation. Brian Martin has replaced me as president, and he has assembled a superb team of senior managers who have expanded History Associates' business areas, learned to deal with their own crises, a down economy, budget squeezes, layoffs, and have emerged chastened and, I think, strengthened by the experience. Recently, the company has won several multi-year contracts, enabling us to expand the number of employees by 20% over the past year. I am enormously proud of what this new team has accomplished. I would like to think that History Associates has helped make teaching the alternate career choice for professional historians. And maybe in another 50 years, university history departments will discover that the future lies down the entrepreneurial yellow brick road and not in the ivory tower. I could not leave you this morning without a few words about the future of the Society. While my being here may have brought out a bit more of the old guard than is usual for a Society annual meeting, I am deeply grateful for all the new faces that I do see here today. You are the next generation, the next group of leaders of federal history and of the Society for History and the federal government. Over the past few years, the direction of the Society has been set by those who have made a different career journey than mine. People who have viewed their career as one outside the classroom, one of developing the applied role of historians in reaching a broad public. I note that these younger people, like recent past presidents Leanne Potter and Mike Reese, and incoming president Matt Wisniewski, and the executive committee all fill this role. Pete, I'm sorry, I'd like to include you, but you and I are all part of the same group. It's up to these younger leaders now to move the Society to another level. Several years ago, we worked on getting a historical office into the legislation creating the Department of Homeland Security. Against all odds, with the help of Bruce Craig and the National Coalition for History, the legislation included the office. Last fall, the Archivist of the United States announced the creation of a historical office in the National Archives. The experience of the House History Office shows that once an office is created, it can go through difficult times, but then be resurrected through the efforts of individuals and groups. This is all good news, but a word of caution. Change is neither immediate nor easy.